What's up, everyone? It is the Gods of Men live stream, and we're back. Sorry for the delay. We got Spencer, Ross, Nick, Dave. Also, sorry that we weren't here last week. Everyone's in a great mood for some reason. I can't quite tell what's going on. But yeah, I mean, so we missed last week because it was the holidays, and this week what we're doing is the God of resolution. So how can we have a healthy relationship with resolutions? And all of us, I think, I mean. Well, first, I guess I'll start off the stream with the question: did you make resolutions this year?
Yes.
Yes.
We got two yeses.
Not
Yes,
really, no.
kind of.
Okay, in a kind of, in a not really. So, Dave, I know that you are passionate about resolutions, and you write a blog post pretty much every year, kind of talking about your resolutions. So I thought I would let you kick off. Why do you do resolutions? Why do you make them?
Great question. Yeah, I've been writing resolutions down since 2009. I was actually just looking at an old journal when I was 19, and I had resolutions. And last year I had 33, and this year I have 27. And the reason why, and B, why, let me ask why I do them is here is it's a heuristic for giving us a limited amount of time, but an ample amount of time in the same way our lives, to look intentionally at our lives and alter them for the better, and for others, for ourselves, for God, for our faith. And then why I have so many is because my life is there's variety. At one time I could be, going gung ho for one, focused on one, but then the next hour or the next day I could be totally burned out on it, and I want to do something completely different. So I have many throughout different aspects of my life, like spiritual, emotional, career, relational, etc., and physical. So that's why I do resolutions, why I take them very seriously. Every time I write the word 2018, you know how that, like, there's an adjustment period when you write the new year, like on checks or journals, or you're writing. Every time I see that, it's a heuristic reminder I have some goals that I should be gunning for.
So, Dave, you are passionate about resolutions, and Nick, it sounds like you didn't really do anything. So, I guess maybe they're not as important to you, or you just haven't made them a priority. Why is that?
Well, I did them for a long time. My dad had me do them as a kid every year, 5 resolutions, and like every year without fail, I failed all of them. I think maybe I was too ambitious. But I think I'm just really bad at setting goals, and that tends to not be how I kind of run anything, whether my business or my life. I'm just not very. I have broad goals, but I guess maybe I'm too open to change and kind of not. I get very hesitant about picking one goal that 8 months down the road I might realize this is not a good idea. I don't know. It's just kind of risky in my mind, and just because I just don't think I'm good at it. And in the past, like, it's only disappointed me. So I kind of quit, I guess. I have like ideas in my head of things that I would like to accomplish, but rather than writing it down and then looking at it in 6 months and being like,
Oh, that didn't happen. But
yeah,
like,
exactly.
why do you think you
just
didn't
kind of
accomplish them?
float around in my head.
Why do you think you didn't accomplish them? Because I've had the experience where I'll write something down and like give up on it and forget that I'm working on it, and then it'll happen later on, and then I'll find like the written down thing later on. So I found a lot of value in writing things down. And so I'm wondering,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think I was just always too ambitious.
Okay, so I've done that.
Yeah, that's a big one. And then number 2, I guess I don't feel like I need to have them written down. I have like a few very particular goals in mind that I can't write them down in one sentence, I guess. Maybe I should start thinking more along those lines, but yeah, Dave says yeah, but
Yeah,
I'm just not good at it. I think maybe it's just a fault of mine. I don't know.
Ross and Spencer, what do you guys think?
Yeah, well, someone said something recently that really stuck with me, and what he said was, I think a lot of times I learn so much. I've taken so much information in a year, but what if I just took some time to apply what I've already learned? And that's kind of been like something that I've been thinking about going into this year of, how much like information, how much knowledge did I learn in the past year that I didn't even apply or put into effect. And so, yeah, that kind of, I heard that going into this new year. So I think I'm going to try, not that I don't have things I hope to accomplish in the new year, but I liked that of thinking, you know, what are some scriptures that I know in my mind, but I don't live out in my life? What are some goals that I've already made that I haven't yet accomplished? So yeah, that's one. So maybe I'm kind of a hybrid between a Nick and a Dave. I don't know.
I'm definitely a Dave. I read Dave's article about, what was it, Dave? Like something like 42% make resolutions, 42% never make resolutions, certain percent are on the fence. Right. I always make resolutions. I've always made resolutions. I think, you know, in the 28 years I've been making resolutions, I've probably only done like 1 or 2 years where I've actually met all my resolutions. I'm looking at my New Year's resolutions for last year, and out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 resolutions I made, I only met 2 of them. So I can understand, you know, like what you're saying, Nick, as far as never meeting your resolutions and what that effect has on the human psyche. And yet I continue to make resolutions. I have 8 new resolutions for 2018. Man, it's tough. It's tough because there's a lot of theology as far as involved, as far as, you know, if you make your resolutions, what does that mean? You know, man plans, God laughs.
Yeah. We should get into that, like, because we are all Christians and we're talking about issues and how they butt up against our faith. I think that I'd love to get into that. I think for those who don't, first, and also New Year's resolutions, this is like it's not a right and wrong situation, you know, just to be upfront. Like what I find that they're so great about New Year's resolutions, it's like it's the articulation of intentionality, where like you can be an intentional person, but by seeing it written down and then putting a number on it and like being really specific, it like, because the most beautiful thing when something happens in like October and November of that year and it's a New Year's resolution, for example, last year, 2017, one very specific was to help a guy break free from a pornography addiction. And up to that point, I had no idea how that was going to happen. And then through Vlogust, I put my number on a video I made about porn. A guy calls me and like, and it's the first time he's ever voiced that to someone. The other thing is like a digital fast that happened in November, and I didn't know when that was going to happen, but it came about in my life like at the right time. Where I think if I didn't have New Year's resolutions, I would feel so aimless. Like my future would look like grayness. I do them. What do you guys think about that?
So I think the New Year's it's interesting because the New Year's resolution is like an arbitrary amount of time, and it's like every time 365 days happens, that's the time to come up with these new metrics that we're going to measure our lives by. But it's kind of arbitrary. Like we could start it on October 7th, but instead we do it January 1st every year. But it seems very meaningful. It seems like it's a good. I have a good feeling whenever I make a resolution for January 1st, but I don't know why that is. Like something seems more purposeful about January 1st than about October 7th. I can't quite understand why.
It's the new year, man. It's like you're writing 2018 now, not 2017.
Yeah, there's a ritual to it, I guess.
Yeah, that's the heuristic, the trick. Like it's a little mental shortcut.
Mm-hmm.
And
it does feel like this new thing.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Gret and Dave, because Dave, I read your article as well and loved it. Really enjoyed it. But Gret and Dave, I think you two should dialogue about systems versus goals. I think there'd be some interesting conversation from how you set a resolution and what that looks like.
Oh.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I'll explain what a system versus a goal is, and then we can dialogue about it. Is that a plan?
Sure.
Okay, so I did a video about this a while back, and the person who turned me onto this was a guy named Scott Adams, who's the creator of Dilbert, and he put the idea of a system versus a goal is a goal is like I have this thing I want to accomplish, and it's a pass or fail. So like I want to lose 25 pounds, and if I lose 25 pounds, I've passed. If I don't lose it, I fail, and that's what a goal is. Whereas a system is I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, and that has a lot less to do. That's a lot less results oriented. But the idea behind it is because of the way that humans are designed, it's a lot more likely to produce positive results than setting this arbitrary number, which we don't necessarily know how we're going to accomplish. So the idea behind setting a system is to put in place measures to improve ourselves on an incremental basis instead of giving ourselves a far off goal without clear directives on how to do it. So that's the basic idea behind the systems versus goal approach.
Okay, one point, like, because systems are great, goals are great. I think they go together. But my one gripe, and this is kind of why when people say, like, I saw a tweet where I said habits are more powerful than goals.
Oh, Jordan Koshai, I saw you.
Yeah, well, I agree that's crucial and like given. And once you set a goal, you should set a habit to achieve it. Put the system in place to head towards that goal. They go in tandem together. The caution that I warn people about is once you set up a system, it can become a comfortable crutch and it leads to apathy or stagnation or like a routine that you can basically fall back into instead of taking the chance to set a new goal, to challenge yourself, take control of your life and move it beyond a system.
But don't you think that would only happen if you set up a poor system? Like a good system is not going to have that happen as much?
Yeah, I mean, life changes and we'll need new systems as life changes. And the goal helps with like articulating that, how life changes, as opposed to being reactionary.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my life is not where I want it to be.
Yeah.
Isn't the idea behind a system too? I know I've read Scott Adams before, and he talks about energy and doing things that give you energy, and that's really key. You set up goals for yourselves, resolutions, and if they're really draining your energy, just because maybe. So for me, I've never been able to work out or exercise consistently. So that might be a really bad goal for me. And it might just totally drain my energy, and I get kind of all consumed with accomplishing this goal that's not good for me. Does that have anything to do with systems versus goals or resolutions?
Yeah, I think that's the whole idea behind emphasizing a system. Because with a goal, it's like a lot easier to feel defeated or like I lost or I didn't get what I wanted to with a goal. But with a system, you can feel like there's a lot more positive reinforcement, because you're like, all it is okay, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, and by nature of doing that, you become healthier, and every time you go to the gym, you're like succeeding in this thing.
Really quick,
too. Almost to me though sounds like mini resolutions are kind of like a resolutions for losers. like you know, a marathon, no. Half marathon, no. I'm just going to go to the gym and see what happens. So I don't know about that. and I'm like a big. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the problem with, like, we want to avoid systems for system's sake, because if I just set up a system, I'm gonna burn out or like get bored if I don't have, you know, some like an exciting future to gun for. You know what I'm saying? So, and also,
I see. There has to be some underlying motive for the system.
Exactly, it's inspiration, and it keeps you passionate about it. Because here's the thing: goals, set up a system and don't have a goal. And say it's about writing, and I want to get some writing done. I set up a system where I write from this time to this time in the morning. But as a passionate, emotional creature, sometimes I feel like writing at 9 p.m., but that would break my system. But so I don't write. You know, it's like I need something that's flexible to be able to work with my passion. Where a system can be too rigid and can therefore be counterproductive or not challenge us.
Well, okay, so I want to start talking about like, so we've been talking theoretical. Now let's talk like practical. What are some of the goals that you guys set out for yourselves this year? I guess Dave, since so we don't have a whole lot of resolution keepers or makers.
Spencer, I want to hear yours.
All right, I'll read mine. My phone's all right. 2018 New Year's resolutions: 1. Direct a feature film. 2. Read the Bible in a year. This time, King James Version translation. Last year I read The Message. That was rough.
Did you get through it?
Yeah, I read
Nice.
it all.
That's
It was
great.
tough. Eugene Peterson, paraphrasing. I did it. I've read the ESV multiple times, but The Message was tough. King James first time. Number 3, write a book. I am 1/8 through that. Number 4,
What's your book?
it's about hard faith
Oh, okay.
with Penguin Books. So we'll see.
Wait, you have
You
a
have a
publisher?
Yeah. My
Dude.
marketer set me up.
That's great. Congrats, man. That's
Dude,
huge.
that's awesome.
I didn't do anything. It's just cheating. It's my marketer from my film. Number 4, leave the country. Hopefully something productive, like go
Leave
to.
as in forever.
This
You mean
is
travel
the-
abroad?
Yeah, right. This is the longest I've been in America my entire life without leaving the country.
Mhm.
So going anywhere, if it's like December 2018 and I still haven't left the country, I'm in LA, so I'll just like drive down to Mexico. But something, leave the country. Hopefully,
And why is it that you want to leave the country? What's the motivation behind that?
to expand my horizons and my worldview. It's just I love America. Whenever I come back to America after I've lived outside of the States, I've always appreciated it. I remember fondly whenever I've lived out of the country for a couple of years and coming back to the States. It's always a great feeling. But to get out of the country, I think it's very healthy and it makes you appreciate what we have here. And it just expands your horizons. Place like that is very different from America. The most different I've ever lived outside of America is in Singapore, just because I was a minority. But I need to get out of America for my own spiritual health.
Yeah.
Number 5, join a guild, probably the DGA or the PGA, Producers Guild of America, or the Directors Guild of America.
That's like a LARPing thing, right?
I thought of it.
I hate you so much.
Oh.
And those were his last words.
Yeah.
I think you made him mad.
You got really offended.
I wonder if he'll show back up. That's oh yeah, he just joined. Spencer,
Oh,
welcome
hey. Yes, it's LARPing.
back. Okay. All right. So go ahead.
Number 6 is personal. Number 7 is financial. Number 8 is plays.
Okay. Cool.
Yep, that's it. That's all. Number 8 New Year's resolutions.
I've got 5, although I don't. Well, I've got 5 on this blog post that I wrote from this past week, but they're like I was vague. They were more like a. Here's what I learned in the past year and what I want to do better in the next year. So and there's resolutions tied to each one, but they're not very specific. They are specific, like in my in how I apply them, but they're not specific in how I wrote them. But I can talk about what they are. So like the first one is I resolve to measure the product of important daily disciplines with monthly OKRs, which is so I don't know. Okay, someone should look up. There's a hour and 20-minute video on what OKRs are, but it's what Google uses to like vastly improve the productivity of their employees on a it's actually on a quarterly basis. But anyways, I have personal OKRs for my life, and it's basically like how can I have like spreadsheets and stuff that track like they use very specific metrics to track my progress, and at the end of every month I'm giving myself like an actual percentage score. Like I got a 74% this month, and the idea isn't to get like a high score or a low score. The idea is to like track your progress and like measure yourself and see the improvements that way. So it's a really cool concept, but it takes like a long time to learn it, but that's the gist. I resolved to put out more thoughtfully produced content. This past year, I just kind of like, sometimes I like took my time with content and sometimes I just vomited it out. And I think that was a mistake. And in this year, I want to produce better content. And I think I'm like good at it and I'm capable of it. And I think it would be more respectful to my audience to do that. So that's what I want to do. I resolved to only offend people with content and not with tone. So this was like a huge learning experience. I think this past year was like a big, like passage of immaturity to maturity, I hope, where there was a period of time where I just was like, you know, people are dying and they're hungry and there's sexual slavery and there's all these really urgent matters and people need to care more, and I'm just gonna say things aggressively and they need to listen to me. And that's not how the real world works. That was a very immature thing that I had to go through, and I'm glad I did. But this year I think there's like things that are offensive, just because like true things that are offensive, but at the same time, I don't want to unnecessarily offend people. Yeah. The next one was I resolved to set challenging but realistic and trackable goals on a monthly basis. I guess that's similar to the OKRs. And then I resolved to only post content pertaining to my life's passion, extreme poverty alleviation. So I think I spent a lot of time in this past year talking about like a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with what I really care about. Like I had a podcast for a while where I talked about politics for like 40-something episodes. And I like politics a lot, and I've studied it a lot. Like I know it really well, and I can talk about it forever. But it's just like I don't think it's that important, and I spent a lot of time on this thing that I didn't feel like was very important. So I want to get better at that. So those are my resolutions, Dave.
Those are sweet, man. One thing too, just like, and I'm not a pro at New Year's resolutions or at goal setting by any means, but
You're just an evangelist.
Maybe, but yeah, one that I've experienced, back to what you said, Greta, about them goals being binary when they're specific like that. Like if I want to pounds but I lose 23, it's not like I failed. Like there's still positive differences in my life because the goal was set in the first place, even though I didn't nail the specific number. Like,
yeah,
like there's value to it even when you don't accomplish it to the letter. Is something to keep in mind when you set goals. Like last year I set 33 goals and I accomplished 18 of the ones that I didn't. The reason why I didn't accomplish goals last year is because A, my life pivoted and those goals became no longer relevant, or B, I didn't quite reach 50,000 downloads from my app, but I reached 1,500, you know, more. But anyways, so I'll whip through these. One is get a book deal with a publisher. I wish I knew someone who had a contact with a publisher. Because I'm writing a nonfiction book this year about worldviews and judgmentalism. I want to speak at a conference.
Well, I have a question. Sorry, go ahead. Speak at a conference. I just want to hear more about the book thing. I think that's interesting. Like, why do you want a publisher? Like, don't you really want the platform or the audience, or is it that you actually want a publisher?
That's a good question. I think honestly, the very first thing that comes to my mind is I want a different experience from self-publishing. I self-published, like when you write a book, it's like, do I self-publish or do I get a publisher? I self-published. I experienced that. Cool, good experience. I want something different. And so publisher is that option. That's really my thinking behind it.
No, I understand.
And it would be cool to have a publisher. That'd be sweet. Speak at a conference. I don't know what conference it's going to be. I'm thinking Inbound. That's in February, and it would be a breakout session, so nothing like huge, but just somewhere. Find a full-time source of adequate income, and that, like, my career's changing into journalism more, like a writer from business, which is cool. Make a baby is one. very,
Yeah, you are.
a very popular one that is like on everyone's list is more books.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I see that. Like, I see that on everyone's list.
Did you know that it's something like if you're like 20 or 30 years old and you read one book a month for the rest of your life, that's 300 books total. Like, it's not that many. Like, you think there's tens of thousands of books out there and you have all these options and all this time, but really, if you read a book a month, you'll only read 300 books for the rest of your entire life.
I'm hoping to read less this year.
Really? What?
No, I'm
less
kidding.
than less than 0?
Yep.
Just kidding.
No. Audible also helps. You know, that
Yeah.
counts as reading. But
I do a ton of podcasts, but I want to get into books more. I've
do,
heard they're great.
do 30 days of a Holio diet. That's a combination of paleo and Whole30.
That sounds miserable. No offense.
That's a goal, not a system, Dave.
Yeah, that's a goal, and it involves a 30-day system of dieting.
Yeah. I can talk about diet a lot. There's a diet that I attribute to. Yeah, we might as well. This is the resolution podcast, but
Yeah.
the diet with the highest compliance rate, the greatest number of people who start this diet actually go through with it and actually lose a significant amount of weight. It's called the slow carb diet. And once a week, you have a cheat day where you can eat whatever you want, like Snickers bars, huge, like a full pizza, McDonald's for breakfast. That was my last cheat day. Like, you can just do whatever you want. But then the other 6 days of the week, it's basically you're stuck with no carbs, no fruit, no sugar, basically only nuts, vegetables, and protein, and like beans and stuff like that. So meat, beans, all that stuff is okay, and you can have as much of that stuff as you want, but you can't. But the idea is that you cannot have anything beyond like the limits of this diet. And I did so. If you stick with it in like 6 weeks, you'll see like total transformation or huge transformation, and it's relatively easy to do. And you just end up eating a lot of the same foods, but you have a lot of good food too. And there's a meal I have every single morning that I just like. I love it, and it's completely within my diet. And
What
you
is
can
it?
have guacamole. It's a combination of spinach and eggs and refried beans, and you like mush it all together, and you add curry powder, and you add salt and pepper and paprika, and then
And then you throw up 2 hours later.
it's really good. Yeah, but it looks like
It's
mush.
called bulimia.
Yeah, it's very effective. And then after
I
all that,
tried
you
that back
throw
in high
some.
school. It doesn't work.
Okay. After that, you throw some guac. We can come back to that. Yeah. So, anyways, that's what I have every morning. But I love it. It's like at first I was like, oh, this is just okay. I guess I can put up with it. And now I like go to bed thinking about having it the next morning. I really like it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I gotta try that. What diets to me fall into two categories. One is like lifestyle, and the other is cleanse, where it's like short, and then lifestyle is like let's do this and maintain it. Lifestyle is more of a system, of course, and cleanse is definitely more of a goal. And of course, there's
Yeah, so what's the
interplay.
point of like a cleanse? Because I just kind of feel like you're just gonna ruin yourself on day 31.
To break any addictions. That's the point. I mean, it's not necessarily to lose weight or get healthy, or
Yeah.
it's almost like a mental cleanse to say like I'm not dependent on any food or drink
I
for
see.
my happiness for 30 days.
Are you addicted to any foods right now?
Foods, like coffee and alcohol are probably my most habitual beverages. But foods, it's a good cue. Good cue. I crave carbs at like as your diet sounds awesome if I wanted to lose weight and be healthy. But
Mhm.
Here,
I think so.
here's a question for you guys. What's one thing what do you think would be the hardest thing for you to fast from or give up for an extended period of time right now?
Beyond foods and drink, like everything's on the table, or just food and drinks?
Anything.
That's a great question.
You, dude.
This is why I do this. Like, I want people to ask me stuff like this. That's a great question. One of the first things I think of is alcohol. It's not like I go binge drinking, but I probably have like a glass of wine once a night,
Right.
and then more on weekend night or something like that.
When I gave up. I would agree. Coffee also comes to mind. When I did the 7-day fast, I gave up coffee and alcohol and Netflix and social media. And I found that with coffee, tea replaces it. So like, it seems something falls into its place. I don't know.
Yeah.
But back to your question, like I'm curious what other people have to say.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that, but we'll come back to it.
Okay.
One thought I had was just like food itself. So as Christians, fasting is, and this wasn't like a trick question. This is just a thought that came to me right now. But as Christians, fasting is something that Jesus says, like he implies that it's a part of, his followers' normal living. And it's something that I've been trying to work in as a normal discipline. But just thinking of how much I eat food just because it's available, not necessarily because I'm hungry, or even if I'll be fasting, I'll be just so excited for as soon as I am stopping to be able to eat food. So maybe not necessarily a specific food, but just food itself would be one for me.
Yeah, I can't think of anything. I mean, I think of coffee, but I think a few days I'd be fine. I can't really think of any one thing or any habit like that
That means there's something
would
that's
be
so
too hard to
big
give up.
you don't even realize it's there.
Probably you're right. Yeah, you're right. I know you're right.
It's all those Kit Kats under your pillow.
There's not that many there.
I did just drink a whole entire glass of chocolate milk right before this
That's
Child.
this live chat, and I'm not feeling very good right now. So. No, I can't think of anything. I really don't. I really think that I don't think in these terms a lot, like setting a goal or doing the opposite. Like some kind of fast. I guess that's still a kind of a goal. But yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything. I'm perfectly resilient against all temptations.
You inspire us.
Even Jesus fasted.
Sorry, what did you say?
Even Jesus fasted.
Yeah.
So.
I did a fast once, and I did it for 3 days. I felt like so bad, and I don't know if that is supposed to. I mean, of course, it doesn't feel good, but I didn't know if I was like maybe was not ready to do it, or if that's just part of it, or I didn't do it long enough. But anyways,
You just felt like tired, or what does so bad mean?
I had a horrible headache for 3 days, really, really bad.
Oh, you fasted for 3 days?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that. So when I was in Malawi, me and the other people the other people on the missionary compound, we used to fast the 72 hours before Thanksgiving dinner, and then we would just go nuts on Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
And
reverse Mardi Gras.
Yeah, exactly. And it was challenging, but honestly, like that's like to do like a big thing for 3 days is way easier for me than to give up something I kind of like for Lent for 40 days. It's like way easier to just like do nothing for 3 days than do something small for 40 days. I like really don't like giving up that freedom.
Yeah, I want to emphasize too, like for fasting from a Christian perspective, which is we're all united by our love for Jesus. It's not just like a self-help, giving up something to, lessen that thing's affection, but the goal is that it gives us a greater affection for God and for the Lord. And the idea is that we spend, the time that we would have spent enjoying whatever that thing is, praying and being with the Lord. So I think like a self-help kind of mindset with these kinds of resolutions. And as we're Christians, I think it's important to keep, which I think we do a good job of, but Christ at the center of all these things.
Yeah. So on that.
I was gonna ask Ross, have you had that experience where you fast, but you do it intentionally with the idea of growing closer to God, and then at the end of the fast, you feel like that was accomplished?
Yeah, good question. Thanks for asking, Gret. I think, well, two stories come to mind. One, my friend just said recently, like, he's never had a time where he's fasted from something. He's never had a time where he's given up something for fasting, and he has an experienced breakthrough in bringing that before the Lord, and like where it hasn't been a significant time for him, even if it doesn't look like you said, Nick, in the way that you expect. And then second, my friend is a missionary, and he talks about how a church in Indonesia, a group of believers, they say like when they're facing an issue on what to do, like just questions where they really need God's wisdom, they'll say like just fast and pray about it, and then not only like will you have the wisdom to know what to do about it, but like it will work out completely. So for example, one situation is like there was a husband who had married several women, and he became a believer, and they asked, they were saying, what should this guy do? And they said, just fast and pray about it, and the women will all become believers, and then they will get, that things work out. And sure enough, it happened. And so I think we underestimate the power of, bringing it before the Lord. Fasting is something I personally am just getting into more recently, as kind of working it into a normal discipline. But in my limited experience, I would say I definitely have reaped the rewards and fruit of God, stripping me of things of this world that appeal to me and directing that affection toward Him.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's like a lot of, I've been watching and listening to like so much Jordan Peterson lately, like just
Good
a
guy.
lot. Oh, you started watching him, Dave, or listening to him or
Yeah.
something? Yeah, I've been just like so much, but one of the things he talks about is the idea of temporary discomfort for long-term gain, and fasting is definitely one of those things that ideally would produce that.
Guys, I got a question. Do you think people are hesitant to do New Year's resolutions simply because of the name connotation of like NYR? When people hear New Year's resolutions, it's like they roll their eyes, and it's like that's what everyone does. Everyone fails.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even worth it. Do you think that people just like don't want to do them because of that?
When I think about New Year's resolutions, I think most people, I don't want to be like the guy who's like really condescending, but I think most people just don't do them because they're like lazy and they're not trying to improve.
Well, I think a lot of people don't believe, even not in a super unhealthy, lazy way, but they don't believe they can like actively improve themselves, like consciously, actively, in that kind of way. I don't know. I read Scott Adams, like actually, Gret was the one who kind of referred me to a lot of what Scott Adams wrote about this, and I kind of get the sense from his book that
Nick, you referred me to Scott Adams.
I remember I introduced you to him, and then I kind of quit reading, and then you sent me all this other stuff. So
It's probably
I'm
true.
glad you did, yeah.
Yeah.
But I kind of get the sense that he kind of has this perspective on people, like you are the way you are, and certain things you do are going to really improve your energy because of who you are, and certain things you do are going to really drain your energy. And if something's draining your energy, no matter who you are, you got to stop doing that thing. And I've heard people that I know say like, I'm just like one of the few percent of people that working out's like really bad for me. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. But then on the other hand, I mean, I don't know. I think some people really do just think that they have a trajectory, they kind of have momentum, and it's like a really long-term vision, and it's very broad for themselves, and they don't really feel the need. They don't feel at the beginning of the year like this is a fresh start. For them, it's just kind of the new year. I guess maybe I kind of feel that way.
But do you think a lot of people have that long-term vision that you're describing?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, when they're middle-aged, they have this like long-term view of retirement. They have a big financial goal, and that really is like one of the major driving trajectories of their life, at least professionally. And I don't know. I just think that self-improvement, at least from my perspective, it seems like people's eagerness to improve themselves, which maybe, for better or worse, kind of wanes as we get older. And I don't know if that's from like a wisdom in the sense like, you really can only improve yourself so much, but you really are who you are. There are things you should be doing, to actively try and be better and become better. But I don't know, maybe you learn more about yourself, later in life, and you don't really feel the need to make active conscious resolutions. I don't know if this is just kind of total hypothesis.
Yeah.
Nick, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, because like when I look around and I see folks who one of my favorite questions is asking people, would you rather have more routine in your life or more spontaneity? And it's a good question, because like everyone who's older kind of doesn't want to change. So like as a challenge to all of us, we are experiments, because we're all kind of on the younger side. See, as we get older, will we also lose the desire, the propensity to change?
I think it's such a powerful force. It's the same thing as asking, like, will we want to be more comfortable when we're older? And we totally will. And how do we work against that? Because I think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I
agree.
I think
I wonder though if there is any wisdom in that. I'm totally I envy your guys' resolutions big time. So I'm not saying that that's those are bad things, but I wonder if there's any wisdom in kind of this idea that you are who you are, and you really need to come up with your life goals, and those just need to drive you every day. And maybe they're not really specific, but you know what they are, and they're not going to change year to year. Either that, or maybe people just give up on a lot of things. I mean, I know a lot of people that just gave up on physical fitness entirely.
It may be generational, like with where our parents came from, with like the wars, and with history, how developed it is, and also maybe the country we live in, of course. And then I think with where we're at and the technology and the abundance that we live in, too easy to get. And so I think in the millennial generation, I think there's a desire to have variety, have change, not do the 9 to 5, not just retire at 65, retire at like 20 and then work when I'm 60, like do things backwards. I think it might be a generational thing. That's just a hypothesis though.
See, I'm of the opinion, like the reason I want to hang out with you guys every Wednesday night is because I feel like you guys are some of the few people in my life who make me want to be like a better person. Like you make me want to say like, okay, I want to like have the same. I know Dave, except for Dave, obviously. No, but like for real, like I'm like, oh, like Dave has like this really diligent writing, and Ross has this super close, passionate relationship with God, and he's like testing his own rationality. And Nick is someone who's just very academic, and Spencer's a great guy too, but he's not here. But anyways, I like all of you guys have like something that's like, oh, I want to be more like that person. I'm hanging out with you guys because I want to be more like that. But I think the majority of people in my life don't inspire me in the same way that like the five of us, including Spencer, and that are people like the reason that we're all together is because we do stuff like this. But I don't think that that's normal. I think it's not normal. I think there's so many forces working against that.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the time when, add 10 years to our lives when we have, Nick, you already have kids.
One, yeah.
So you're kind of the one, like I look forward to when I'm in your shoes, and I want to look at myself now and be like, do I still want to change, or do I just want to survive? Like with these kids I'm drowning in, just trying to make ends meet. So maybe
Nick, what do you think about that?
Well, I will say I only have one. I've heard there's like a big difference from 1 to 2 kids, or from 3 or 4, a huge difference. But
you have like 1.5.
Yeah, 1.5. But I will say, and
I'm the half.
To Greta about this. Yeah, you actually. No, that's actually. I will say I've talked to Greta about this, that it is now, my son is very well behaved for a 1-year-old. But I do think that parenting can kind of consume everything when it doesn't really have to, especially this day and age when providing for your kids isn't necessarily something that every day you're really, really worried about. So I don't think it necessarily needs to be all consuming and in survival mode. I know people that have 4 kids, and I think they are, and that's just how it is. But I'm kind of and I think I've talked to Greta about this. I'm kind of I kind of push back against the idea that if you have kids, like, oh, you're so busy, you can't do anything. I think you can if you really have passions. And frankly, I see that leak over into people's spiritual life and spiritual disciplines as well. It frankly leaks over into mine that, parenting is a big deal. But it doesn't just consume every aspect of who you are. I think some people take it, it's kind of almost like a crutch or an excuse to, there's when the kids go to sleep, you just have to pass out and watch Netflix, all night because you're exhausted. Well, people have been having kids forever. A lot of people that we all really respect as very compelling people who've accomplished a lot, probably all had kids. And, it doesn't have to be, and I don't think it should be like your be all end all of your life. I think a lot of people see their kids that way.
We should do the God of
sense.
Kids sometime. Only
I'll-
one person
I'll-
is qualified
I'll
to
lead.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Nick solo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's you make me think about that a lot because I don't have kids and I'm not even married, but
Well, and a good example.
I don't
that
want to
you've
be the
even
person who gets
brought up.
doomed.
A good example you brought up to me though is that you've encouraged me to think about at least traveling overseas for an extended period of time, and that's something that I know if I brought that up, there are people in my life who would say, well, you should wait till your kids are grown up. Then again, is it really bad for them to experience that? If it's really hard for them, it's really hard for us as a family. It's hard in maybe a comfort sense, but is it something that's good for us spiritually? And I know a lot of people that did grow up overseas, grew up in very difficult situations, and are all the better for it. So that's kind of an example where you ask the question: is this good for my kids, or is this something that God wants me to do? Those aren't necessarily the same question.
Do you guys know anyone over the age of 40 who sets New Year's resolutions?
No.
Or 50?
Yeah, I do.
Not personally.
Nope.
I don't know if they'd post about it as much as we would. But I feel like I do still.
Nick,
Is
you
it
do.
a resolution if you just kind of have it in your mind?
No.
You got to write it down. I almost feel like you have to be public about it, or you don't have to be public about it, but you have to. It needs to be like written down and finalized. Do you guys agree?
I'd say so.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you gotta write it down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Unless
know
there's people
someone
who
that
are
does
like
that, yeah.
have one resolution, and then they just say their one resolution and they tell everyone their one resolution, and I think that's maybe legit.
Yeah, have you guys also heard of the thing like if there's some sort of chemical thing or physical biological thing that if you tell someone like I'm running a half marathon or I'm training for a half marathon, you already get some of the enjoyment that you would have gotten from actually doing it. So sometimes telling a goal I've heard is like actually not good for you because you
Oh, interesting.
get enjoyment from saying it as if you've already done it.
And I also think it depends on your personality because I've met people who have told me that their imagination is so vivid that they can just think about something and they will extract as much enjoyment out of just thinking about it as actually
That would
doing
be
it.
so great.
Yeah.
I'm a billionaire.
Yeah.
Um,
And it prevents
yeah,
them from
I haven't
doing
heard
things.
that. I've heard the opposite. That if you tell people, it's like I've heard it's like an accountability method.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I've actually heard the opposite too. The idea is that if you well, maybe not if you tell one person, but if you just like post it out there, then people know. Guys, I think Ross was just raptured.
I was gonna say that exact same thing.
What does that mean for us?
Yeah. It would have been him though, honestly.
I definitely fall prey to like releasing my New Year's resolutions, and I feel like that gives me good feelings. But it's like, okay, now my word is on the line to lots of people, and that's what gives me the kick in the butt to be proactive.
Well, I'll throw this out there. Last year I made 3 resolutions, and all 3 of them were kind of crazy. But one of them was to be on the cover of Time magazine, and it didn't come true. and and yeah, so I put it. I don't know. I think it was a dumb thing for me to do that because it was like I think I was just like trying to provoke a reaction out of people, and I thought maybe like what are the like what if it comes true? What if just like having the guts to say something that bold actually comes true? Um, so yeah, what do you guys think about the idea? Like the is there an art to picking a resolution that's like challenging but not over the top?
Yes. Take
Yes.
self-awareness.
But should we challenge? Should we give ourselves like crazy ambitions? Like there are people who have an insane year that they could never anticipate because they're trying for it.
Yeah, I'm like too much of a skeptic in a lot of ways, and I always wonder about stories like that. Um, Maybe this is why I don't make resolutions. I just feel like people have and I think I learned a lot of this from parenting. Like so much of you is hardwired into you, and um, people who set these like super ambitious goals and they tell a story about setting this goal and how they did it. I'm always skeptical, and I think they knew exactly how they were going to do it because they had a lead or they had some way of knowing that this was definitely likely to happen. Or it was just like a total fluke. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I've heard of some people saying that their resolution that they wrote something down and they visualized it and it came true. And I've had that sometimes happen. I've really like tried to visualize things and write things down, um, and they've not come true. So yeah, I share your skepticism to some extent, but I also like I've observed it. Like I don't want to get political at all, but like one of the things that's interesting about Trump is he like no one in the world thought he would be president except for him, and I think from what I understand of his like psychology, he just like really visualized him as the president for a long time. Like he comes from the like Tony Robbins school of thought, and then it happened. I don't want to get political at all, but that's just like I look at stuff like that, and there's other people. Scott Adams talks about this very thing happening, um, and it's just yeah, I don't know what they think of all that.
Yeah, yeah, it is interesting, Grant, because you know I've read Scott Adams and still do follow him. But I like to apply like the Christian principles to that kind of thinking. I think what if we spent as much time praying about something as we spent visualizing it, or what if we spent as much time, praying about something as we do writing out goals? And I'm the first one to, talk about this. I don't need to. I'm preaching to myself, but instead of just like I see myself as whatever. How about we just spend time like as Christians? We believe we have limitless access to a limitless God. So just really bringing that before God and saying, God, this is what I want, but I'm surrendered to what you want, while also saying like I believe that you are capable of achieving an impossibility, that nothing is impossible with God.
To that point, and like kind of the question is, how does our faith affect our New Year's resolutions and vice versa? That's a good question. I think one thing that a pet peeve of mine is for those who like will back and wait for God to give them the clearest sign that they should do something bold. And instead, I think that we should take action, be bold, and God is with us regardless of whether we fail. Like there's such a fear of failure.
Yeah, I mean,
Passivity that they wait on God, and we are supposed to wait on God for sure and surrender everything to God. God can give and take away, like you said, Ross. And God comes with us regardless of what happens. I think he like a father loves to see his children go for the moon. That's personal opinion.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And what's funny about that is I don't think anyone has the justification to say, I'm waiting for, I need to wait to know what God wants me to do. And until then, I'm not going to be bold, because I think there's a clear calling in Scripture to be very, very bold. So I think that's kind of incumbent upon anybody who truly understands who God is. I think like the path forward is pretty clear, if not specific. It's very clear.
I think that we're gonna pretty much come to a close now. I'm trying to get these things under an hour, but yeah, that's I think a great note to end off on is this idea that the reason that I like hanging out with all you guys is because you're all like I'm not just gonna like settle for like whatever comfortably comes my way, whatever's like casually in front of me. Like pretty much everyone on this live stream and Spencer who's not here, like everyone wants something more than that. They want like a life of boldness, like you called it, Nick. And so so yeah, with that, I'm gonna let you guys leave your closing thoughts, and then I'll kind of wrap it up at the end.
Yeah, I'll start. So yeah, again, I didn't make resolutions, but I do kind of, as I alluded to, have a big picture goal. And it doesn't involve being bold, because I don't feel that I'm a naturally very bold or courageous person. So I guess I encourage you guys to just incorporate boldness in every one of your resolutions, tag at the end, be bold. You're going to be bold about this. So yeah, I just think boldness for me is kind of a general theme for this year that I'm hoping to weave through even daily, even day-to-day things that I'm involved in.
I'll go next. I would encourage everyone to set specific New Year's resolutions, because it's the crystallization of a vision for your life. Thing I'm moving toward. Like when we all have those moments where it's like, what am I doing with my life? New Year's resolutions can give you kind of like concrete things. It's like, here's what I'm doing. Like these are big. I probably won't be able to do all these, but it's something I can gun for, and God help me. So I believe everyone should challenge themselves and set New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, that's good, Dave. I didn't know people this year it came to me that people kind of have a word for the year. If I were to set a word for this upcoming year, 2018, I really feel like the Lord wants me to abide. And that's a word that is, to a non-Christian, maybe not even a word that really has a frame of reference. So I'll reference this verse here. John 15:5, Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. So my goal this year is to ask myself constantly throughout the day, not just once a day, like, am I abiding? Am I remaining? Am I living in Jesus? And just as he lives in me, and trust that the fruit is going to flow out of that. Of course, there may be some smaller specific goals, but believing that abiding in him is my number one goal as a Christian in general and for this upcoming year. So yeah, thanks guys.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining in the chat. Thank you guys for commenting, all of our viewers. It's been great to have you chatting with us, and it's cool to see what you guys are going for this year. And Nick, I think it's interesting that you brought up the word bold, and Ross, you brought up the word abide. And Christianity is always full of paradoxes and apparent contradictions. Yep. And so we've got these two things, boldness and abiding. And I love that this group that we have together is both pursuing these two things that seem like in contradiction to each other, but really I think together somehow being bold and abiding could be two, like when combined, can actually be a really powerful thing. So I'm really interested to see how 2018 turns out for all of us. But I know that this has been really beneficial, and I'm excited to continue with this. So next week we'll see you guys, and we've got some plans for the coming weeks, and we'll let you guys know about that. But in the meantime, leave your comments in the description. Let us know what your New Year's resolutions are. Dave, Nick, and Ross, thanks for joining. Spencer, I know you're out there. Sorry for the bad connection. We're glad that you could be a part of this too. So thank you guys so much. We will talk to you later. Bye.